Hi everyone, and welcome back to my little series on how I lost 150 pounds in 11 months. Today I wanted to talk to you about exercise and what exercise I did during those 11 months. And surprisingly enough, the only exercise that I really did was walking. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is about how I used walking or walked myself to 150 pound weight loss. So just to bring you up to speed, I have hated walking my entire life. Childhood, teenage years, adulthood, I hated walking. I could not understand the concept of going for a walk as something leisurely and enjoyable. To me, it incited a lot of pain, a lot of shame. I carried an awful lot of shame and I thought that everybody was looking at me when I was walking. I had terrible pains in my legs, specifically my outer calves when I was walking, and I just hated it. And I knew that when I signed up to BodySlims, which is the program that I chose to do as my roadmap to weight loss, one of the big things that BodySlims asks you to do, or one of the main things that you have to do, is you have to walk for 1 hour every single day. And I knew that that was coming up, so I decided about this time last year, so the start of January last year, that I was going to begin walking. And so I walked. I began every morning, got up, went to the office, dropped all my stuff and went out for an hour walk every morning. Now, there was a couple of issues with that. The first was that I wasn't wearing insoles, which I had been prescribed by a podiatrist because I thought I was better than my insoles and better than the podiatrist. And I can tell you I was not. I didn't know how to walk, which is something that's really surprising, and I'll come to that in a second. And I never stretched. So I was somebody who basically had done zero cardiovascular exercise. I had been to the gym continuously for the last number of years beforehand, so I had good muscle buildup, but I had not done any type of cardiovascular workout. And there I was, just going out and trying to walk for 1 hour every single day. And it didn't go very well. Let's put it that way. By the time the BodySlims rolled around and 1 week into it, so that was about the end of January, I had pinched the cartilage in my knee. And basically that rendered me completely incapable of walking. I was in so much pain that I physically couldn't walk. So I had tried to get a head start by walking and learning to walk before it, but because of those issues, not knowing how to walk properly, not wearing my insoles and not stretching, I ended up injuring myself. And what I wanted to do today, or what I thought might be useful, is if I went through a couple of tips or things that I've learned that have helped me about walking, and then I'm also going to show you how I walk, because it's not just going for a stroll, and the stretches that I do afterwards. I have to say I'm not a medical professional, so I'm just showing you what I do. I work with a number of exercise scientists and sports scientists and people with exercise physiology backgrounds. So I asked one of them to take a look at the stretches, but as I'm saying, everybody is different. It's really important that you talk to your physiotherapist, your GP, before you do any kind of stretching, and don't necessarily just do what I do. So after I pinched the cartilage in my knee, I had been to the GP and I had to rest for a number of weeks, which was really hard for me to do. And then he told me that I had to start from scratch again, which was also really hard for me to do. But because I listened to him and I adopted the things that he told me to do, and then I did a lot of research about walking and I talked to people that I work with, I am now able to walk. Before my birthday in December, I did 10 10Ks in 10 days. So I did 100 kilometers, it's about 68 miles, 70 miles in 10 days. So, just to let you know that I came from nothing to being able to walk so much, and I walk every single day for 1 hour a day, between 6.5 and 7 kilometers a day, which is about 4 miles a day. And sometimes at least once a week I try and throw in a 10K. So just to give you an idea that you can go from zero up to some kind of level and pretty decent cardiovascular health within a couple of months. I have a couple of tips lined out here and I'll go through them quickly, and then I'm going to show you the how I walk section and how I stretch as well. First off, is to learn to walk properly. You're probably thinking to yourself, Carla, I've been walking since I was 1 year old. Like, I know how to walk properly. If you're anything like me, maybe you don't. And I was walking incorrectly my whole life, and that was the issue, and that's why I had so much pain every time I walked. So when I learned how to walk, I was like, oh, this is so much easier. So I have a couple of videos linked in my link tree in my profile in the bio, and you can go and check those out, or you can go and seek physiotherapy guidance for yourself. But those videos really changed the way I walked, and it was like a brainwave went off, and my whole walking completely changed and became so much easier than it was before. So that's the first thing, is to learn to walk properly. Also, my GP mentioned to me something that really stuck, and that is that going for a walk to go to the shops or go grab a coffee with a mate is not the same as going walking. It is a completely different thing between a leisurely stroll and walking as exercise. So they're two different things. So learning to walk properly and really building up your cardiovascular health with that is a different animal to walking leisurely. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you are, knowledgeable as much as you can be. If you have pain, make sure you seek physiotherapy or podiatrist help, because you may need insoles. And that's something that I did. I had plantar fasciitis prior to walking, and then I decided that I did not need to wear my insoles because I hadn't had pain in a while, and then I pinched the cartilage in my knee. So if you have pain in your legs, maybe you might need insoles and you might need more support. So at least get some over-the-counter ones, good arch support, nice cupping around the heel, but I highly recommend going to a podiatrist. You don't have to have ones fitted to your feet unless absolutely necessary, but at least get the ones that are standardized if you need them. My next tip is to start off slow, and this came from my GP. If you've never walked before, walking for 1 hour at high cardiovascular rate is not a great idea. Starting off slow with 15 minutes every single day for a week, and increasing that time by 5 minutes every week on week. So 15 minutes for your first week, 20 minutes your second, 25 the next, 30 up to an hour. And that's how I started to walk again, and that's how I learned to walk properly and I avoided injury, is because I increased as my health and my fitness levels increased, and the muscles in my body started to be aware of what they were supposed to be doing. I also have a couple of tips for consistency of walking, and I've kind of thrown them in here as well. And one of them is that I like to go, there's kind of an expression is get out of hell before the devil knows you're dead. And if I wake up in the morning and I go down and have a coffee and I feed the cats and I pet them and I kind of wander around the house and then I have to go for a walk, I'm going, do I really want to go for a walk? Instead, I have my clothes ready before I go to bed the night before. So I am out of bed, use the bathroom, brush my teeth, put on some barrier protectant for my face because I live beside the sea and it's insanely windy around here. And my clothes go on me and I'm out the door within 10 minutes. That is how I have to do it. Don't sit dawdling around on Instagram or, checking your messages or checking Facebook or doing whatever. Of course, everybody has different circumstances in their life, but that's just a tip from me, is just get out before you decide that you're not going to do it. Next, you're not made of sugar. If it's raining, you won't melt. Now, I'm not talking torrential, tropical flood, rain if that's in a country that you're living in. If you're in Ireland, most likely that's probably not going to happen, and you can walk in the majority of weather conditions here. I have many a time been walking beside the sea with sideways freezing rain with my coat jacket, hood slapping across my face going, why am I doing this? But I feel fantastic when I get home and I get my hot shower. Don't let the weather be an excuse. Be prepared. Make sure you have your thermals, make sure you have extra layers, get some waterproofs, get really good shoes, get crampons. If you've heard me crapping on about crampons over the last couple of weeks, They've changed my life for walking when it's slippy outside, which happens a lot here. Next is to play high tempo music. When I am in a BodySlims cycle, which is a 10-week cycle that we do as part of our weight loss, I am listening to the highest tempo music. I like 90s and 2000s dance for walking, and it just gets me moving. I do like to listen to an audiobook or a podcast, but I know that my speed is much lower when I'm listening to those. That might not be the same case for you. It's just I've noticed that my speed isn't as quick if I'm not listening to music, and you do need to get that speed up. One thing I've learned from BodySlims is to walk with your arms up. So I actually demonstrate, and you'll see me walking later on in the video, but I do look a little bit like a loon, and it did make me feel very self-conscious the first couple of weeks. But if you walk like a runner walks, like this, that really helps to develop your collarbones. It helps to tone up this whole area, and it really helps with momentum. If I'm walking with my arms down, it's holding all of that extra weight around my hips. It's making it even more difficult to walk. Whereas if I have my arms up, that tempo is going. I am moving, my momentum is swaying. We're going for it. Whereas it actually makes it a lot easier, and you don't become as self-conscious after a while. You just kind of get over it, and people just like, oh, there's the lady. And just a word of warning, people will think you're waving at them all the time, but you just get over it eventually. I like to map my route and do that route consistently, and then increase it as I achieve it. So I walk for 1 hour every single day. I walk pretty much the same route every single day. And then when I get to within an hour, if I'm finishing that route within an hour, I know that I need to increase that route. So I'm adding an extra estate, or I'm taking an extra road over and back, so that I'm increasing my distance. So for example, when I first started walking at an hour, I was walking about 3 kilometers. I'm now walking about 6.5. And I'm looking to get to 7 in an hour by the end of this, probably by the summer. That's my goal. So I'm constantly increasing my speed. So if you're doing the same walk and it's becoming kind of too easy, you need to increase it, because it needs to be a challenge. And that was my next tip as well, is to speed up. You need to make sure that your speed is getting up. As you get used to walking, you need to be increasing your speed. If you have a fitness wearable, I have a Fitbit, or you can use your phone as well. And there's some great apps like Map My Walk and things like that, or Map My Run and Strava. You can use those to see how far you go. Is to see how far you go in what time. And I would highly recommend always trying to increase your speed, or at least get to a certain speed and then increase it again. Just you're always wanting to challenge yourself. I have 2 more tips for you, and then I'll get to the other part. So the first one is, if you are in pain, rest. Because if you feel like you're going to miss out because you're in pain, if you go walking when you have real genuine pain, or your body is exhausted, you're going to injure yourself, and you're going to end up not being able to walk for longer, if you catch my drift. It's really important to rest when your body needs it. I do walk every single day, but there are occasions where I go, I am in so much pain, I am physically exhausted, I can't do this, or my knee feels a bit niggly, or the cartilage knee, or it actually had an effect on my shin as well. And if my shin starts acting up, then I know I need to give it a rest for a day. And that's listening to your body, and that's really important. And then my final tip is safety. Especially if you're a female out walking by yourself. I walk by myself in the morning, and where I live, it's pitch black when I'm walking. I wear a high-vis vest. My brother got me this fantastic hat with a light on the front of it. I would recommend using some kind of tracking app as well, and having somebody in your house who can see where you are. I like to use Road ID. That's the app that I use. So it sends a message to Vincent so he can map my walk as I'm going. And it also has an emergency contact. So if I don't move within a certain amount of time, it texts him and texts my friend Jeanette to say there could be an issue. If you're wearing headphones like I do, I would recommend only having one in, just so that you have some kind of awareness of your surroundings. And always walk where there's light. It's really important to make sure that it's bright. So if you're walking on main streets where there's street lights, and try to avoid obviously like back alleys and things like that. It's just a safety thing. So, you know, if you're out walking by yourself, they're just a couple of tips from me. Okay, so they're my tips. So now I'm going to show you how I actually physically walk and some of my stretches. When I'm walking, there's a few important pointers to note. So I'm always trying to get as straight up as possible so that my spine is straight. My shoulders are back and relaxed. My chin is down. I'm not leading with my chin. It's nice and soft and down. And then I'm going to be pushing off from my back leg. And that's how I have stopped any injuries. You might have noticed as well that I have my hands up when I'm walking, and this has really helped with momentum, and it also really helps me, I think that's where my collarbones have come from, is from doing that motion. So when I'm walking, I'm going opposite arm to leg, and I'm going towards that shoulder. So I'm going like this when I'm walking, and I believe that that's really helped to get my collarbones out and to reduce this area in general. But yeah. So I'm going to show you a couple of stretches that I do now as well. I stretch every single day after I walk, and that really helps for recovery and helps to prevent injury. I like to use a platform like this. I typically use the wall outside my house, but you can also use your stairs or anything that you have at your disposal. I like to just stretch out my general front of my thighs and my groin area by doing this stretch first. And I hold it for a few seconds, making sure my knee doesn't go over my toe. And I'll do the other leg as well. You'll have to excuse the cars. We're in quite a busy golf course. Then I'm going to stretch out the back of my leg or my hamstrings. And I'm going to put my leg up, have it pointed towards me, and just hold that stretch for a few seconds. And then in order to stretch the outside of my leg, I'm going to look over my shoulder. And you're going to really feel that stretch going up the back of my hamstring. Then I'm going to stretch out my full body by doing it over the head, like a ballerina, and then pointing as well. And this is just helping to stretch out my entire hamstring in the back of my leg. And then I repeat it as well on the other side. You'd probably go a little bit slower than I am, but this is just for the purposes of showing you what I do. Then I'm going to stretch out the back of my hip. So I'm going to get my leg back up again. You can also do this lying down by bringing your leg over. Imagine you're lying horizontally. But I'm just stretching out, so I'm pulling on my leg here, and I'm stretching out all this hip area, and I'm looking over my shoulder. And I'm going to stretch out the inner thigh as well by getting into the prayer position and pushing out my leg. Then we're going to lift the leg up and stretch in, pulling that towards your body. And then I'm going in for a calf stretch. So I'm leaning backwards, making sure my foot is straight, my knee isn't over my toe, and I have a nice long stretch from my calf, getting that heel towards the ground. And then my final stretch in this motion is to lift my leg back up again. And I place my foot sideways on the whatever platform I'm using. And this just really helps me to stretch out the outside of my thigh. You could also do this just sitting down with your leg in this position as well. I just choose to do it straight after I'm walking when I'm outside. I feel that sometimes if I don't do it straight away, then I won't do it if I get into the house. And then I repeat that entire motion then on the other leg. But I'm just going to show you the rest of what I do. The next thing I'm going to work on is stretching out my quad here. This is something that I didn't do properly at the start of walking, and this is how it basically led to me having a lot of injuries, and I've learned now that I really need to stretch out my quad all the time. So for me, a very easy adapted way of stretching out my quad is just to put it up on the platform and push down and get a nice long line here, and that's really just helping to stretch out my quad. I feel a nice stretch there, and then I repeat that
on the other leg. And I would do that a few times. And then just to stretch out my whole body and feel really good, I'll just stretch up. I'll lean over to the side, back to middle, and over to the other side. And then I'm just going all the way down, finishing off a nice stretch on the back of my legs. A little over to the side, a little over to the other side, and back up again. And that's my stretching routine. Now, obviously I recommend that you talk to your physio or your GP or somebody in case you have any injuries, but these are just a couple of things I've picked up from working with some sports scientists that I work with in my day job. But yeah, I think it's really important to stretch, and I think a lot of people don't stretch after they walk. They think that walking is such a mild activity, but by not stretching I really injured myself, so I'd really recommend doing a few stretches.
That's the end of this episode of how I've lost 150 pounds in 11 months, all about walking. Please, if you have any questions or any comments or any tips that you find that have been really good, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will be back with you very shortly.